Okay, I think we might make a start. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep, good. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to the students, the staff, the practitioners, our guests and members of the community. My name's Sarah McGann and I'm the head of the School of Architecture and Built Environment at Deakin. I'd like to start off by acknowledging that we meet on the land of the Wadawurrung people and that the sovereignty of the land of the Kulin Nation was never ceded. We pay our respects to the local people for allowing us to have this gathering on their land and to the elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the pivotal role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people continue to play in the Australian community. It's my great pleasure to be able to host this event tonight. It's been quite a long time since we've been able to host these kind of events, and now that we're all COVID coping, I'm hoping that our mandate as a university in a regional area is going to shine forward and we have more of these events and we engage more discussion and debate for a brighter future for our regions and the role that architecture and built environment play in that. So tonight we're very excited to have our world-renowned and adjunct professor Sean Godsell with us, who has been organising this for us with Map Studio, and he's going to come and introduce them. But first I'd just like to say a couple of thank yous. Firstly to Map Studio, who've made this massive trip to Australia. Thank you for taking all those protocols, all those tests and arriving. And also couldn't do it without the support of the Italian Cultural Institute. So we'll leave our thanks at the end for the organising team, but I'd like to hand over to Sean, who's going to do a proper introduction to Map Studio. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Sarah, and it's great to be back, isn't it? And back in this incredible city of Geelong, we were talking before about what an amazing place this is and what great potential it has, and also that there are similarities between the waterfront campus here and the School of Architecture in Venice, which is also on the water. I first met Francesco and Traudy in Harry's Bar in Venice in around 2010 when our mutual friend and eminent architectural historian Francesco Delco introduced us. And Francesco had recommended Francesco and Traudy to me as we had been shortlisted for the Australian Pavilion in the Giardini in Venice, and we needed a local firm of architects. And he said, you should try these young pair, Francesco and Traudy. They're very good. And I said, okay, well, let's see. We'll have a drink and we'll decide. And immediately we formed a friendship and a bond, and we have that friendship to this day. And it's been a pleasure for me to watch their careers blossom. And they are now reaching a mature phase of their work, and it's exciting to see, and none more so than their delivery of the 2021 MPavilion here in Melbourne. So now we share something more in common. Francesco and Traudy ran the delivery of the Vatican Chapels project on the island of St Giorgio Maggiore in 2018, and I was lucky enough to get to do one of those chapels. So I have a building in Italy. They now have a building in Australia. The world is balanced. And on that optimistic note, I'd like to invite them to the lectern to deliver what I will guarantee you will be a fabulous lecture. So thank you.
So, good evening. I'm Francesco Magnani. On my side, Traudy Pelzel. We lead Map Studio. Our practice is based in Venice, in Italy. We are really pleased to be here. So thank you for the Deakin University for the invitation, Sean for his introduction. And the MPavilion team, Sam Redstone is here with us, that also managing all the meeting of these days. And overall, the Italian Institute of Culture, we have the director, the Italian Institute of Culture of Melbourne. We have the director here with us, Angelo Gioè, that support our coming and share all the meeting and the discussion, the programming together of these days. It's like a dream in some terms for us to be able to travel again and to be able not just to come to Melbourne to see our pavilion, but also to meet friends again, and as probably all of you has experimented during these last 2 years. We would like to share with you a kind of walkthrough our main built architecture. The title of this talk is Build on Built, and it seems in some way obvious coming from a city like this, that is all historical center. But Build on Built is related also to a dimension in some way of the built areas in our country, in Italy, the dimension of the periphery. We were discussing about it today. We did a nice trip with Sean coming to Geelong, and feeling the emptiness and the strongness of this emptiness of your country. And in Italy is completely other question. For example, in the north of Italy, all the main part of our countryside is damaged by the expansion and control of the sprawl building of periphery. But Build on Built, it is related also with, in this case, the articulation of anthropic landscape. I love to start to read also some text by Octavio Paz that probably introduce better than all this extension meaning of Build on Built for us. There is a bridge between tradition and modernity. Separated, tradition become petrified, and modernity evaporate. But when joined together, one gives life to the other, and the other responds by giving it weight and gravity. I'm sorry the translation is made by myself. I hope it works in English. And from another point of view, we can reconnect also to the main theme of the Italian Design Day of this year, that is about regeneration and sustainability, rethinking in some way about our life and our city in a kind of circular economy approach, but has to be led by the meaning of the project and design. And so in this way, we are able to reinvent our build heritage outside a logic of continuous expansion in some way, and or a continuous apparent invention completely disconnected for any deep-seated meaning. I pass to Traudy, showing you an image of our office and the view from our window of the main room. And so we are dealing with the history of this Build and Built every day in our life.
So the first project...
I don't know if you have to speak a little bit.
No. Here, it's okay.
Yeah.
I can say sit down. Okay. The first project we are going to show you, it's a project that it was very important for our office because we won a competition in 2006, and we realized this competition for a young architects couple was really like to win a lottery in a way. Above all because we were in Italy, that not very much of the competition are realized, and in an historical part. But the competition was was very well built in a way, because it has in the jury a very qualified jury with international architects, and also it was it see all the actors of the landlord, so the municipality, also the state that was owning the land. The competition was for 4 themes. Scusa, non si può fare così?
Sì.
Okay.
Anche le frecce.
Così, okay. Was made for 4 themes. One was the entrance. We are in the Arsenale of Venice, so the productive part of Venice, in which in the 15th century they build the ships, and they were one of the industry of Venice, the well-known industry of Venice. One was the entrance, the other was a kind of canteen, then it was a bridge to connect this part that now is less, is more industrial or tertiary than the other, and then this building on the corner. This building on the corner was the Porta Nuova Tower. It was a building built on the 19th century when to put the main mast on the vessel before they went out. Usually in the Arsenale was previous of that time was divided into parts, and the ships and the vessel were going out from this canal. Because of the increasing of the size of the ship, they decided in the second part of French domination to open this new door towards the sea. And so they built this incredible building that was a kind of machine. As you can see, it has a kind of crane to lift the main mast and to put before the boat was going out. The building, we found it in a terrible condition because it was crumbling in a way, was used in an improper way because they use like a crane, and it has a deep non so come si dice lesione, okay. A deep crack in this part because the facade because of the too heavy stuff that was raised was going towards the canal. So we couldn't enter in the building in the beginning because it was completely crumbling. The upper part was going down, and we could see just this part from the small staircase that was located in this position. The building was divided in 3, and only in the first floor you could feel through this big arch. There are 2 big arches on the walls. There are enormous walls, large 1 meter. You could feel the entire dimension of the building. These were the drawings of the competition, and the reason that we won is because we recognize that this part of the building should have been maintained completely free of installations. And we located what the brief was requesting in the lower part and in the upper part. Then we provide some device to read the space, a new staircase that at that time was not still developed, and we keep it clean and readable, the old architecture. This is the program, the intense program of the brief. They ask for an auditorium that we located in the strategy near the entrance, then a space for exhibition that we located in the big space at the first floor, and they ask for some offices and some other devices. And above all, they asked for a promenade that was open to everybody, also to people that are on wheelchairs. And so we provide a promenade with ramp that can reach the roof. This was the reason because we won the competition. The building site was very, very difficult because of the small space and because of, as I said, the building was crumbling. So the scaffolding were mounted and dismounted several times. You can see from the bottom the upper part of the building between the big arches. All the work was very difficult. We had to call also some workers that were climbing in a real way the top of the building, and till the 4 or 5 months we couldn't reach the top because they had to dismounting all the things that could come down. Here you can see the picture of the building site in which they start to do the ramps of the promenade. It was also a very delicate work in doing drawings that the company could understand, because sometimes the survey was not precise because of the building was not accessible. And so we had to study the way to communicate our intention to the builders. For example, to point when we wanted an alignment, so not giving properly measure, because the measure could be a little change because of probably this wall could have been bent inside or outside. And so we find a way to communicate with these builders. This is the result. This is the conference room with this shell that was studied for amplify the voice, to make it louder, the voice of the speakers without microphones. Device, the staircase that bringing you on the first floor, in which is the exhibition part. Here you can see from the staircase, from the arrival, the big void. The staircase was a kind of device studied to present some balconies to read the space at different levels. So we wanted to experience, to let the person can experience completely this fantastic dimension of this building. Here we are in the upper part where there is a room for offices and information. Then they use with a completely different brief. They didn't, in the end, when we finish, the owner borrowed this building to the municipality, and now they are using to do events. But at least we achieved to finish the work. And from this point, you can start the promenade. This, in this picture, you can see our attention to always detach the new from the old, and always to have a difference in material to make it recognizable, but at the same time a unique corpus. This is the suspended room, see from above. This is the starting point of the promenade that bring everybody on the roof, and we were very carefully reaching the existing windows without opening other kind of windows. And this is what you can experience for the top. This is not a very, very high building. We call it tower, but it's 36 meters. But in comparison with the other part of Venice, that you have just the tower bell that are pointing high, you have an incredible landscape of the lagoon and all the Venice till the San Marco basin. And this is the building from outside with the new cover that contain the new functions.
Another intervention we finished in the same year of the tower is placed in a small town in the center of Italy. His name is Ferrara, and has a very beautiful historical center with a lot of Renaissance presence, a beautiful castle, and a very particular place that is a last countryside inside the historical wall of the city. And our intervention is just there, in this corner on the northeast, in the middle between two cemeteries, the Catholic one and the Jewish one. And the owner, the client of this proprietà, want to keep this countryside against every kind of real estate logic, imagine to do and develop some villas inside the historical center of the city. And so it was particularly interesting to realize a farmhouse, no? Un agriturismo, we say in Italian. And the building probably was built in the 18th century. Is present in a map, in a historical map of the city of the middle of the 18th century. Probably it was longer and arrived at our days in a short version, very modified, very manipulated, open windows, because it was the house of a farmer. And also in the middle and a half of the building, the house of the farmer, and the other half it was a stable and a bar on the first floor, as usual in Italy, in the center of Italy. So our main theme was to regive the feeling of this building and its design without this canopy, without this functional transformation, or open a window when you need and something like that. And we can use the volume of the canopy to realize a new volume, a new small building, an annex building with all the systems to let functioning, going on the heating, the cooling of the building. And so the theme was the relationship between the ancient building and this small building. Small building designed also because all around the corner on the northeast, you have the ancient wall. In Ferrara, we have a very beautiful walk on the top of the ancient wall. And so to keep the measure of this new building in reference of this height, and was made with a curtain box that hosts all the systems inside, and a part of this annex made by wood, more vibrant surface, that hosts the office of the management of the building, and also a room because we don't have a lift inside the building for disabled people. And this is the original building. As I said, it's half and half. And half is the house of the farmer, and the half is a stable on the ground floor. And our first action was to put the circulation on the border. So to keep and to let the people feeling this tradition, this extraordinary place, in some way, an extraordinary place inside the historical city, and the relationship between the landscape. So we put all these things at the ground floor. We did a restaurant and some toilets and some had a kitchen, and at the end a breakfast room, and all these facilities are contained in a wooden box, apparently, and detached from the wall, and so let the people moving across the building and feeling the landscape outside. And also we moved the stair in a center position, having also a crossing passage that frame this ancient well to one of the sides of the building. And the first floor, one side the barn, the other side the bedroom of the farmer, became a bedroom for the tourists with a toilet, and we preserved the barn for special events, wedding or something like this. And this special stair is very heavy, connected with the ground, and became lighter going up, also letting the light come inside the building, and the quality, improving the quality of the space. Here we can see the relationship between the two parts that also were connected, reconnected in some terms, with the design of the new facade inside the architectural main original design of the columns. And there was a kind, we call it of a vertical tatami, that find rules to design a system of windows that also has a kind of shading protection, open itself, and in some way to show how the building is used, which part is used in some times. You can close every part, and also to realize a new unit in some way, as we can see from this image, all open or closed. And from the barns, in the double height, you have a kind of painting gallery with this device, because each window is a kind of painting to the landscape, of the landscape. And go forward.
This is the project that we did for, again in Venice, was the new tram terminal in Piazzale Roma. This part of Venice is the western part where all the trains and cars arrive. The point here. So this is the railway station, and this is the Piazzale Roma. And this part of Venice in general is a part that has a completely different scale of the rest of Venice, because it was involved in the modernization of the city during the 18th century, 18th and 19th century. So first arrived the bridge that was bringing the trains, then it was arrived the bridge that was put in this close to the other, that was bringing the cars and the buses, and all the facilities, like, for example, the gas or some factories that are now used as university, as this one that is in a similar position of this building, facing the water with the shorter side, that was a cotton factory. In this place that has a completely different scale, as I said, respect to the rest of the city, we had this big building that are containing the cars. This in particular was made by Miozzi, and is a rationalist building, quite good one. The space had no scale and no definition in a way. In the center of this space, the municipality decided to make the arrival of the tram terminal. And they realized the quarry, but they didn't, and after this work, they realized that they didn't have any shelter. So they tried to find a solution of this. And so since the beginning, we thought that we had to provide something to give, in a way, a measure, to make understand the measure of the place, and to make a place in itself. So this was the tram terminal we realized, and this was a reference that we had in our mind. So a place in the dark, this is Nighthawks by Edward Hopper, and a place in which the commuters, the people, the tourists can recognize in the center, and have a place to go, where to be attracted. These are some drawings. We, as all other our project, we pay a lot of attention to integrate system inside the figure, and not let anything to the case, just to try to find a place and integration for everything. So the screen that they ask for, and this cupboard for system that are integrated with the bench, and so on. This is the solution was to build a beam that is suspending in a central pillar. The beam is long 32 meters and wide 2.5 meters. Here are the sketches about the problem of where water is going. This afternoon we were speaking with the students about where water is going. So we had this big beam, and we have just one point. So of course we need to have something, a pipe that was draining the water inside this column, this pillar. Two pictures of the building sites. This, the the inside of the beam that was made with flanged metal. Steel, sorry. And you can see it was concrete, but very reinforced concrete because it was support all this stuff. And this has some other picture of the result. So it has 3 lights with the dimension that are going, it's always the double, and they are giving a kind of measure, and inside a space that is very enlightened. You can see the relationship with the tram. The life, that this project was very discussed in the beginning, but then the life takes go with him in a way. And with this project, after several years, we won the prize of Italian architect. And it was really funny because it was a kind of revenge, and in the jury there were Dominique Perrault, and it was a jury not Italian.
A little polemic.
A little polemic.
Okay. So, going forward, an office building we did in Bologna, in the center of Italy, for a very important company that produce packaging in the western periphery of the city. Bologna is near Ferrara, we said, and in the same region, Emilia-Romagna, but is the main city of the region, and has a very strong tradition of industria and specialized in industry related to the packaging and the high-level mechanic. We are inside the first site of the company that has several sites all around the city and the world, because it's a leader worldwide of this. He produces a machine that is able to package 1,000 packets of cigarettes in 1 minute, starting from paper and tobacco. I see working this machine, and it's incredible. And so to say the high specialization, no? They are sellers to Philip Morris, to understand, no? This kind of a machine. And this is 50,000 square meter first place of the company. And they ask us to requalify a small part of this plot as a starting point of a complex requalification. They ask us, they had a very short functional program, because they would like to have offices in open space, some classroom, because they need to form the people who will use this machine of the other companies, and some meeting rooms, sale riunioni, and particularly an archives of a collection of industrial photography, but is a collection of photography, not digital, analogic photography, so black and white and color has different needs of temperature, humidity to be preserved. And at the same time, we are very, very close to the airport. And so we are inside, this is called inner horizontal zone, so we have a restriction about the height of building. and we can't build over 36 meters. But they want a tower, so is a quite strange, no? Asking, and so for that a tower and something very transparent to showing the new the renewal of this lot of this company. And so for that we start to think how to preserve the most level of useful level outside the ground for the offices. And finally we find the solution to realize the entrance under the ground, to keeping more levels useful outside the ground. And so to organize the lobby at minus 2 meters under the ground level, the zero level it means. And so this is the relationship between the old condition, the new condition, and the qualification also passed through 1,500 square meter of gardens that is not useful usually, in an industrial compound to realize, but they are very careful to the people working inside, and the building is very apparently simple, has a core that is the main structure, and all the glass around is a particular glass, is an extra light, I think we say in English, but gray base, and so has this capability to reflect the light of the sky that is very, very strong. And at the same time, Renzo Piano was still doing a project for this company, and also the guys coming from Renzo Piano office explain us that is the same glass they used for the Shard in London, for example, if some of has the experience of the reflection of this kind of glass of the Shard understand. At the same time, this building has a complex relationship with the ground, and also under the ground we have a different function as the archives that is a good choice to put under the ground, also to preserving the temperature and not to waste energy, using a very strong systems to preserve the energy. And this is a more detailed plan, in which you can see the different point to access in this plaza under the ground, under the zero level, with different measure of stairs in relation of the main passages, and also a kind of a big step place where the people, the workers, can have a relax on the sunny days. And this section shows the complexity of the building. Now we have a core that is the pillar of the building. We have a post-tensioning structure in concrete that has 2 cantilever, and under the ground we have a parking on 2 levels, and then the archives, and also a small patio that bring lights in this area. 2 cantilevers because we have 3 main beams for each side of the open spaces, and another cantilever all around. That consent also to have this kind of solution, and with absolutely abstract result of this grid of 3.6 meter by 3.6 meter, because in 45 centimeters we have flooring, structure, and systems. And as you know, is not so usual and so easy to realize, because we do an inversion of the beams, and so keeping place to the system for the upper floor. This is system conditioning the lower floor, and this is system electrical and all the things we need for the office spaces on the upper floor. Some detail of the connection of the sketch we saw before. We choose to realize the facade with the, I don't know, Sean, please help me, it's cells, you say? Cellule, prefab modules. In Italian we say cellule. Cellular, okay. So there's a prefab cells that consent to build very fast the building. Here we can say the other challenging was that all the structure of the core of the main beams is facing concrete. So it's facing at a very high level. And managing this kind of build, so we do the first floor and then we start to build the other floor and then they start to put cells on. Keeping the facing concrete perfect also is very, very challenging. Also imagine, as you can, because the resistance of the concrete is different for the vertical structure and the horizontal structure with a cantilever. I see RCK. You use this code to explain the resistance of concrete. No, okay, perfect. Going on. So, but this is it means that using facing concrete with two different resistance concrete characteristics is very difficult to keep the same color and to the same result. The assembly of the cells, and then one of the space that also one theme in terms of architectural finishes is also to find space for absorbing surfaces, because with glass, concrete, all is reflecting for acoustic, and in this way we find the solution. And some images on the outside, and the small patio of the level of archives. And some element became a kind of sculpture, but is connected with the systems in the level underground, and to keep the air flowing inside and outside. Another challenging theme of the underground world is to realize a tunnel that is 95 meters of length, and with some restriction that we have a pipeline, an existing pipeline, so we have to go under and then go up to connect to the different levels of building all around the plot. But also that consent to reinvent and in some terms to do a kind of orienting. If you go to one side or to the other side, and articulating the section with these steps on the ceiling. And when you have a changing of the scale of the height of the space, you have a skylight, and you have a connection with some important parts. Also, the parking has a high level of finishes, because all the system are hidden inside an omega prefab concrete beams, and an image from outside. All these elements has some holes to exchange the air from inside and outside, and we pass to another project.
Okay, we are back in Venice again. We are in 2018, and we are speaking about that project that Sean Godsell mentioned before. So this was the pavilion, Asplund Pavilion, was the introductory element to the first national pavilion of the Holy See at Architectural Biennale in Venice. Sorry. Okay. This pavilion of the Holy See was realized in a wooden part of the island of San Giorgio. This part, close to the Green Theatre, the so-called Green Theatre, was a part that was realized of a new realization of the island of San Giorgio, and at that moment was abandoned. The curator of the pavilion, that was Francesco Dalcò, sought an exhibition that was with the idea to realize 10 chapels, following the example of the woodland chapel of Gunnar Asplund, and realized by 10 world famous architects, and then a small pavilion that was explaining the project of woodland chapel of Gunnar Asplund. You can see this is the plan of the different pavilion, and we draw the Asplund pavilion, and also we coordinate all the work of the other architect. You had Eduardo Suto de Mura, Sean Godsell, Carla Iwahaba, Radic, Florez Prat, Cellini, Andrew Berman, Javier Corvalan e Norman Foster e Terunobu Fujimori. The idea of the curator was to give these themes about a chapel in the wood that this is Woodland Chapel by Gunnar Asplund, that was inside this wonderful man-made landscape that is the Woodland Cemetery in Stockholm. I don't know if someone of you have never been. Our idea was to refer to the supporting building in a way, because our was a supporting building to the pavilion. And also the idea was to referring the supporting building of the Woodland Church, the Stavkirken, that means wooden church of the Nordic tradition. In this example, you can see some tower bell. So we wanted to work with something that was a kind of absolute, but in a way an absolute that was working with a reinterpretation of the language of northern traditional architecture. There is an integration of structure and the exhibition part. The pavilion is long 11 meters, high 8 meters, referring to the chapel of Asplund, and it was made by 10 portals, made here 10 portals made by wood that was bearing all the structure. And inside this, we organized the integrated exhibition with the story of the Woodland Chapel. Here you can see, here you can see the first study model and a developed one. As I mentioned, the idea to bend slightly the side of the pavilion towards outside to place this kind of leggio, I don't know the word, reading system in which all the drawings were placed. And then we also drawing a particular place in which the models of the church are exhibited. We work with in a kind of double skin to make this mysterious light on the top, and with the contrast between inside and outside. This is the plan. The covering of the pavilion was made by shingles, 9,000 of shingles, that was made and put one by one, and they were made of a particular material that was completely experimental, made by an Italian producer that is Alpi, quite famous for interior cladding. Instead, this time he had to do a material resistant to the waterproof material. So he working with this reconstituted wood, but very thick. Here you can see the detail of the panels, the double panels, and then the shingle covering, and the drawings that we wanted to obtain in the final. This is the final surface. In our idea, the pattern of the surface generates a complex microstructure, like the microstructure that was mentioned by Christian Norbert Schulz in his book Genius Loci about the environment of the Nordic forest. This is a few photos about the building site that was very quick. The try to how to control the angle, the skylight, the facade almost complete, and then some exterior, the interior space, the exhibition, the model. One note: this was all this Vatican Chapel pavilion. In a way, requalify this part of the island, because the pavilion received a particular status from the government, and from temporary become permanent in a way.
All the chapels?
Yeah, all the chapels, I said. All the Vatican chapels.
Okay, we pass to another building, and then we will finish with the MPavilion. Looking to the time, yes. And this one is one of our last built project. Is in Vicenza, is a town in our region, in the Veneto region. Is a city of Andrea Palladio. It's famous for this, from his intervention all around the city, and for the famous worldwide Villa La Rotonda, that is just outside the city in the country land. Vicenza has a very huge park in relation of the dimension of the city. That is the Squarini Park. In the origin was a garden of the villa inside the historical center of the family Capra. Is the family of the Rotonda Villa that commissioned to Palladio the Rotonda Villa as a country house outside the city. And during the 19th century, to improve the design of the garden, as in the landscape design of the period, in a romantic way in some terms, the owner bought a convent on the side of this church, the Aracelli Church, after Napoleon occupancy of Italy, of the north of Italy. Napoleon provided to close all the convent, and it remains abandoned, and was bought and was demolished by the family to expand the park in this area, realizing a promenade with some classical statues and this temple on a hill with a small lake around, and also realizing this complex, this is an aerial view of the 60s of the last century. That is a complex of a greenhouse with a small tower and a belvedere looking to the temple. Since until the 70s was still used from a private, how do you say, seller of plant seller, I don't know if it's the right term, but yes. And at the end of the 70s, the garden that was completely abandoned because the noble family has no resources to take care of it, was became public, and the municipality opened a public park inside. But also the municipality has not very big resources, and the complex of the greenhouses became shortly completely abandoned. And this is an image of the 80s of last century, and finally we have just the walls, just the brick walls, when we start the project. And our idea is to maintain very separate the existing walls as an archaeologist found, no, in some terms, with a new volume that expanding itself also in a public walkway on the south front of the greenhouses. And it's very interesting because the greenhouses are divided in two parts. The hot one is this part, with some oven in a half underground level that that consent the circulation of hot air all around this bedding, no, for plants. This area, and as you see in this image, the small tower, the belvedere to the temple, and the hot greenhouse and the cold greenhouse, and the walkway on the south front, and finally our concept is what's called the open greenhouses, also because we were searching and we found a way to create more permeability to this building, also considering that one of the main entrance of the park is on this side. On the other side of the wall, this is the ancient wall of the convent, and so realizing also a movement in the landscape, arriving at the first floor of the tower that is connected with the greenhouses. And also realizing a new structure, because at the beginning, before our intervention, the toilets of all the park were inside a container, just inside of the entrances, and also the small house for the guardiano, the keeper, no? The guardian, how do you call it, of the park, yeah. And so we realized this element with the steel structure as a 6 meter by 3, and inside this grid we located this very small element with a wooden cladding. This is a model of the situation of the project. This is a plan more detailed of the hot greenhouse with the stair going to the oven, and the cold one, and finally we have these two connection parts with the tower, and another element with the toilet and facilities. This was the situation from 80s to 3 years ago. So they didn't take a lot of care of the place in some terms. And we think about a solution that is a kind of exoskeleton that has a very light pillars preserving this detaching from existing walls. And the exoskeleton can support a suspended roof that also can keep inside all the systems, and realizing a glass facade to the south, and realizing also this kind of cladding with a grid that can open in some elements that also realize some shadow from a south facade. Thank you, Sean. And we discussed this project in Venice some years ago. And keeping the distance from the existing wall, also this articulation of exoskeleton concept to put a skylight in the joint, no? Also to keep the feeling of the ancient wall. In Vicenza we have this particular texture of the ancient wall that was made with a mix of stones and bricks, no? Very peculiar, very not peculiar. I have not to say peculiar, very particular. And now we're talking about the negative meaning of peculiar, usually in English, but also can be peculiar because is not a very resistant way to do walls in comparison of, for example, a Venetian one, as we said inside the tower, no, 1 meter thickness, all bricks, very strong. And from outside is this the result? It seems a volume, no? If you look from side, but from the front, from inside, from outside, is completely transparent. And we use a particular treatment for the steel to find the right color, also to interact with this ancient wall, working with the acid on the galvanized steel, and finding this solution.
It was a very low-cost building.
See, we have a very low budget because it was a public intervention, and in Italy, as usual, public intervention have a very low budget. But after all, also in this case, we had a lot of polemics with some association preserving heritage and this kind of things. But the Heritage Office, we work a lot with the Heritage Office of the Ministry of Culture, finding this solution. On the base of the glass facade, also we have some system hidden that has some mechanical opening that improve the circulation of natural circulation of the air, and also not wasting a lot of electric energy to let the system of conditioning work. And this is a photo from the service area. It's supposed to build also a kind of a kiosk here for a kind of restaurant, a small bar, because it's the right place to have a glass of wine, from the top of the hill. And but now we have finished just the first unit with the toilets, because first the toilet and after the glass wine. Okay, it's a point of view. Yeah. And the greenhouse from the other side of the lake. And probably it's better if we change and we go to the MPavilion. I try to manage by myself. Yeah. Okay. So we are from Vicenza. to Melbourne. It's very far. And we can do a very quick walkthrough in two voices.
You can speak in case.
Okay. Because now also is, I think, as we commented before the lecture, no, a particular edition of MPavilion. Probably Sam can explain better than all of us, starting to following the process of MPavilion with Sean in the 2014. Particularly because we worked together for almost 3 years, no, and not so usual not to have an architect. But
this week.
Yeah, so.
With the pandemic in between.
And so, but in the 2019, we were able to see Victoria Gardens and to meet the team of now McGann Foundation, and we had a very quick visit, but very intense. And for us, as probably you understand, it's very important starting from the site. And Victoria Gardens was very interesting in this day in May, in the 2019, because apparently it seems now a field. Oh, okay, it's a field inside the park, but it's not like that, because every side of the place has a different condition. You have a hill with the palm trees. We have a tree curtain, very, very heavy, and also open sides to the road all around, St. Kilda, or I don't remember the name of the other one, big on the Yarra River. I'm sorry. And went back to Venice. We started to think about the idea of a pavilion and to think about probably to find a way to interact with this very strong natural presence, even if obviously is an artificial landscape. It's designed, obviously, no, the park. And so we're interested to investigate the relation between an absolute geometry and the geometry of the landscape. Also imagine that the pavilion can be a kind of totem in some way, no? To highlight, no? Something is happening here in Victoria Gardens, even if obviously it's a very well-known appointment, no? In some way. And we were very interested, as usually, and as Traudy said at the beginning, calling about the penicillina of the tram shelter in Venice, about this relation, this research of the arts during the 60s, the 70s, and in particular the relationship between the land art, the landscape, and so-called minimal art, even if it's a term very ambiguous in some terms. And at the same time, thinking about some reference, some important reference, as for example Cedric Price.
Yeah, we thought that was a
I don't know if you very well.
We thought that was a good expressive route in a way to think to the Fan Palace, to the Cedric Price, because it's this expression of a platform for different kind of events and democratic use. So we thought that was very important as a reference.
Or also some suggestion coming from our side, from our country, from Italy. For example, this research made by Costantino Daddi just near Venice. So using an absolute geometry, it became a signal
an
advertisement, or as a BBPR office. Probably you know that Torre Velasca in Milan, made in the 50s, did in the monumental cemetery in Milan. And
This was quite interesting because it's a grid, a spatial grid that is bearing a kind of message, and the message is the figurative part inside the spatial grid, quite rigid.
Yes, and also becoming an attractor. That
Yeah.
is also the concept we were very interested in investigate. And so some main concept, finally our investigation arrived to find, yes, we want to do a lighthouse in some terms, in a metaphorical way, obviously, but not so. and also to imagine a pavilion that is a reflecting device of these activities, this incredible program that now McGann Foundation is able to organize every year, yes, and we hope every year going on. And so also we really love the work of this French photographer that worked with this mirror in the landscape. And putting all together, as happened when we do a project, in some way, the first proposal was this absolute volume, absolute grid that support this mirror in the landscape, and having a connection with the ground, very oriented in the first solution, host some sitting bench system, and becoming more a stage, than a shelter in some way. And work on this concept, we had the time, unluckily, to work on this, and also was a peculiar time because it was very challenging, as we discussed a lot of time with Sam, with Sean, all together, because the cost of material, everything became more expensive in this period, and so we discussed a lot about the solution to find, investigate solution to find an equilibrium between cost, architectural result, and all this kind of things that are very important.
We found that the costs are very different than in Italy here in Australia.
Yes.
They are more than double. We were shocked.
And finally, we find a solution a little bit smaller that investigate more in the ground, in the connection with the ground. So investigating the role of this oriented solution, or
Of the pillars.
or improve this idea of a stage and the people staying around. And also this was something coming from the pandemic even more, in some terms, that we had tried to consolidate this approach, to consider the pavilion not as a shelter but as a stage, and letting the people all around and reflecting activities, because also we didn't know if it was possible, if it will be possible, to meet each other, when we were discussing and developing this solution. And also was interesting also finding this solution to have something that is moving, the supporting all around, and this was the solution.
The dynamic.
We agree at the end with this concrete precast element that also let the people going through and maybe sitting and so improving
and
more
see
and more
also.
and see through. And because this drawing show the open view in some way. The open view is not very readable, but probably, but letting from the pillar. And finally we arrive at the solution was built.
We did several models also.
And was challenging also to find the way to realize and to put the mirrors inside this abstract structure. And we start with the Ulam spiral. That is a way is a geometrical way of disposition of primal number, we say, no? And so finding a rule to organize the three different typology of mirror. And also we realized a very big model is 1.25 scale, so we were able to open, to look inside, and studying all the position of the mirror. And the choice of the material and the colors, because finally we became very, very convinced that we need a color also to communicate joy, to communicate joy about this possibility to re-meet all together. And we choose the yellow in opposition and in balance with the concrete color and the steel, sorry. And
No.
what happened? Sorry, it's my fault. I crashed the presentation. But probably it's the time. Okay.
Here.
And also in relation with the gray, also of the painting, of the steel painted. Apparently easy, but built this pavilion also was challenging because we were lucky, we worked all together to find a solution, also with the engineer, also it's a AECOM equipe, and also with the builder, that is Schiavello builder, and we find a solution to find a balance between prefab elements, the capability to move with its dimension and to assembly on the site, and also to find the right balance to the quality of the tail, because apparently simple, but to be feeling abstract, so strong, strongly abstract. You have to take care of every small detail of the joints and this kind of things. We did a lot of mock-up. We saw it through Zoom from Italy, and to control the level of the quality. And so the process was controlled in a very high quality way, also checking the way to assembly on the site the parts, the detail of the joint of the parts. And it consent also in I think also a difficult period yet, no, for Melbourne and for Australia in general, no, but Melbourne in particular has the long lockdown of all the world. But to start the building site and with this work before, was possible to assemble the structure, as you say, in 7 days, in 1 week. And also organizing the building site that has a restriction, no, for people, the number of people to be together working and this kind of things. And finally, the light catcher, as we call it.